Hello everyone and welcome to today's November 2025 rec release drop-in session. My name is Jenny and I'll be facilitating today's event, and today I'm joined by James Hardy from the Change team. And just before we get started, I just want to go through some housekeeping with you all. So as always, this event will be recorded and the slides will be available. So keep an eye out on the rec portal and on our LinkedIn for when that's available. We will be using Slido for questions, so the QR code is on the screen now, and I'll also pop a link in the chat. So if you do have any questions, there will be an opportunity for a Q&A at the end. So yeah, we'll just wait for people to scan that barcode, or QR code rather, and I'll pop a link in the chat now. So just as people are joining that, I will share the agenda with you all today. And I will hand over to James Hardy for presentation.
Cool. Thank you very much, Jenny. Afternoon, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, as Jenny said, I'm James Hardy, Senior Change Lead with the Rec Code Manager, and I'm providing everyone an overview of the changes planned for the November 2025 standard rec release today. And there's quite a lot of changes for this release, so there will be quite a lot of information shown on the screen, but these slides will be shared afterwards as well for anyone to refer back to if they so wish. As Jenny has shown as well, we've also got the Slido for any questions and then answers for any topics or questions, queries you have on these changes that I don't cover in the slides as well. I've broken them down again into different themes, so sort of they're grouped together as well. So the first sort of half of this presentation will be going through the change of occupier changes, metering changes, consumer impact bid change, and a few of our data change proposals. And then on the next slide shows the second half, which has a technical one, operational change, theft, cross-code governance, and lastly, our housekeeping change. So if we begin with those change of occupier changes, there's another slide there. Slide here as well, just the overview of all the impacts of the Category 1 documents and Category 2 documents, guidance documents, and the impact of stakeholders. Let's have the next slide, please. Jenny, just an overview there. There are some other changes that will impact all rec parties, such as the housekeeping, but this is a quick overview of all the impacted documents and stakeholders as part of this November 2025 release. So if we move on to the first couple of changes, and these are relating to the non-domestic change of occupier process and two change proposals that are being implemented following the previous implementation of R0155 as part of the June release. So firstly, R0232, the non-domestic change of occupier SDEP screens that was approved by the REC change panel on the 16th of September. So 232 develops dedicated non-domestic change of occupier SDEP screens that couldn't be implemented as part of previous change proposal R0155. So this will replace the temporary workaround provided in the 155 solution by introducing new SDEP process types for the non-domestic gas and electricity process with separate screen for each. And there'll also be the separate standard escalation screens, which are known sort of throughout all use of SDEP. This will provide multiple benefits, including a reduced workload for energy suppliers and faster resolution of queries thanks to dedicated screens. It has been pointed out to Code Manager previously that the temporary workaround does increase the workload as well, so having the dedicated screens will reduce that. There'll be improved user confidence as well, as their dedicated screens means that screens are being used for a specific and appropriate reason and things won't get lost through a multi-use screen. And enhanced data security, as dedicated process types will mean that only relevant teams within energy suppliers organizations that should have access to the change of occupier data through the process types will have access to that data. There's no Category 1 products impacted by this change proposal, but there will obviously be the new process types introduced into SDEP, and the Code Manager will also update the non-domestic change of occupier guidance document to reflect the new process types and detail sort of which numbers they will have and how they should be used as well. The impact of stakeholders for this one, primarily energy suppliers as the party that use the SDEP screens, but there will be an indirect impact on third-party intermediaries and non-domestic consumers who are also engaging with the non-domestic change of occupier process and whose data will be shared through these screens. Secondly, also under change of occupier is R0254, which is the non-domestic change of occupier reporting. Also something that wasn't previously included in the 155 solution and did need the separate change proposal. This one was approved by the REC Performance Assurance Board on the 30th of September and introduces the reporting required as part of the ongoing performance assurance monitoring of that non-domestic change of occupier process and the wider 155 solution. The solution for this change proposal sees energy suppliers being required to upload a copy of the change of tenancy data tab from the existing Ofgem non-domestic market monitoring request for information to the REC portal. As it came up through 155 and throughout the 254 change process, we didn't want to replicate reports or create new reports for suppliers to submit when their data is already being submitted as part of the Ofgem non-domestic RFI. So our 254 solution is basically a duplicate of that change of tenancy tab, as I mentioned, that will just be uploaded to the REC portal on a quarterly basis. The solution also sees backdating reporting to the 1st of July, which is the first sort of working day of the following quarter after the implementation of R0155, and that date was agreed throughout the stakeholder engagement for this change. And that will be covered through the standard Q3 and Q4 submissions. So in regards to that backdating, the Q3 and Q4 submissions will have been submitted to the REC portal anyway to align with the timelines of both this change and the Ofgem non-domestic RFI. So it's easy for the code manager to do that backdated reporting, and there's nothing additionally energy suppliers will need to do. The benefits will see enhanced market confidence through that performance assurance, ensuring that energy suppliers are meeting their obligations, and there'll be enhanced efficiency in that performance assurance and related activities as the burden is reduced on energy suppliers by not having to create new reports for this reporting of the change of occupier process. Having that reporting as well will help the code manager and parties be more efficient in identifying issues and resolving them as well. There's no category 1 products being impacted by this change, but there is an impact to category 2 performance assurance reporting catalogue, which will include a new data tab to cover this data that is being submitted in line with 254. The only impacted stakeholders for this change will be energy suppliers, as they're the only ones that are required to submit data as a result of the solution of this change proposal. Moving on to our next theme, which is metering. We've got a few changes here which are covering sort of various aspects of metering. So the first one is R0152, the revision to the Consolidated Metering Code of Practice, or known as COMCOP. The solution for this was approved by the REC Metering Expert Panel on the 11th of June, and the 7th of November implementation date was approved by MEP on the 17th of June. This is a change proposal many on this call will be aware of, as the code manager, with the support of industry experts, have completed a complete review of the COMCOP document to ensure that REC parties are able to meet their obligations and that the document is consistent and contains the appropriate clarity, but also reflects the processes that are currently taking place or should take place. The proposed solution focuses on 3 key documents, so there are changes to the COMCOP document as well, with the code manager and supporting stakeholders going through the document line by line to ensure that all the obligations were correct and contain the appropriate requirements. And that has gone through extended industry impact assessment and consultation as well. So there'll be a new version of COMCOP. There will also be changes to Schedule 1's interpretation and definitions to ensure that any definitions in there that relate to COMCOP are accurate, but also further additions as well to help increase clarity and understanding of some of the terminology used throughout the document. And finally, there will also be the creation of a new Category 3 document titled the COMCOP Supplementary Guidance Document. And this is, as it says, is a guidance document to help all parties understand COMCOP and what is being said in there and the requirements from that. The benefits from 152 include improved accuracy of COMCOP. So previously, before this change proposal, there were numerous inaccuracies within the document, and they have now been corrected, so improving the accuracy. They'll lead to indirect positive consumer outcomes, as those engaged with the ComCop process will be following the obligations correctly and ensuring consumers are safe and also see the benefits as well. And it will also help with the metering audit as well, helping that become more efficient. So I said the impacted products are in line with what I said about the solution. So the ComCop document itself, Schedule 1, and the new Category 3 document, and the impacted stakeholders for 152 are all those included within the ComCop process. So your approved meter installers, automated meter reading service providers, distribution network operators, electricity metering operatives, energy suppliers, and metering equipment managers. Move on to the next metering change we have is R0191, which is the introduction of SLA for supplier deregistration on disconnected meters. And this was approved by the REC change panel on the 5th of August 2025. 191 ensures that electricity suppliers must, within 20 working days of receiving a disconnection notice from the ERDA, either send a registration deactivation request to the CSS or raise a query via SDEP with the relevant DNO if they believe the metering point should remain connected. The solution sees an addition of the SLA into Schedule 27, the RMP lifecycle schedule, specifically just under section 4.1.8, stating those actions that the electricity supplier must take. For this change, it is purely for electricity suppliers, and the solution does not add timescales for gas suppliers. This was previously proposed under 191, but following party impact assessment feedback, this has been removed. The benefits from 191, so we'll expect to see improved monitoring of electricity supplier obligations by REC performance assurance due to that measurable SLA, and improved alignment of information across the industry. So sharing that disconnection notice and sending that sort of request as well for either the CSS or SDEP will help ensure that there is alignment of all that information across industry and all impacted parties have the data that they require. It is only Schedule 27 being impacted by R0191, and impacted stakeholders again is only energy suppliers. However, I know our operational account manager team is reaching out as well, and the code manager does recommend for energy suppliers that due to a large amount of data that will have to be cleansed as part of 191, energy suppliers are recommended to start this in advance of the implementation wherever possible. Move on to next metering change, which is R0215, the Schedule 30 switch meter reading problems, so rejections and timings. And this was approved by the REC change panel on the 17th of June. This change is a simple legal text change to improve the robustness around the disputed or missing switch meter reading processes. And it sees a new clause inserted into Schedule 30, the resolution of consumer-facing switching and billing issues. The change in legal text will allow missing switch meter reading, the D0300 electricity and SAR for gas, to no longer require a response when the switch meter reading is received. So the redlining is on the screen there, so it will state where a request was raised in regards to 9.11.1b, a switch meter reading was not obtained, and the switch meter reading has subsequently been sent, no response or further action is required. The benefits expected to be seen from adding this clause into Schedule 30 will see a reduction in escalations between energy suppliers, as if no action is required, there is no risk of escalating if something hasn't been sent, and a reduction in performance assurance escalations to energy suppliers as well, as a knock-on effect of the reduction in escalations between energy suppliers themselves. As I mentioned, the only impacted product is Schedule 30, and it is only energy suppliers who will be impacted by this one as well. Move on to the next one, which is R0243, the transfer of standard settlement configuration and time pattern regime data item ownership. So this one was approved by the technical expert panel on the 24th of September and has been raised sort of in line with the MHHS program that has been ongoing. So R0243 transfers the ownership of data items for standard settlement configuration, the SSC, and time pattern regime, TPR, from the BSC to the REC in support of changes that have been implemented as part of the market-wide half-hourly settlement programme. 243 did come in with a fully defined solution, and that was to change the data item ownership defined within the energy market data specification for the SSC, and TPR data items from the balancing and settlement code over to the REC. The benefits for this is that R243 supports the transfer of responsibility to the REC for maintaining the data, SC and TPR data items in line with the MHHS changes, and it will improve industry governance of data items that impact retail processes as well. The impacted products only are found in the data specification data item catalogue. So it's the standard settlement configuration description, standard settlement configuration, time pattern regime, and time pattern regime ID that will all transfer over from the BSC to the REC in terms of ownership. For this change, there are no direct impacts to any REC stakeholders as a result of this change, as it is just the change of ownership from the REC to the REC code manager for these items. So those are the metering changes. Up next, we have a consumer change, so R0227, which is still semi-related to metering, but with strong consumer benefits. And this is the domestic elective half-hourly switching that was approved by the change panel on the 17th of June. So R227 removes unnecessary blocks to consumer switching, where a domestic consumer is registered as elective half-hourly with the losing supplier, but the gaining supplier does not offer this. So the solution is a legal text change to Schedule 23 registration services, with the addition of the text that states where the RMP is subject to elective half-hourly settlements and measurement class F and profile class 0. If the gaining supplier does not offer elective half-hourly settlement, then the gaining supplier shall follow the change of measurement class, change of supplier process under the BSC. The benefits of bringing this legal drafting into Schedule 23 will see increased clarity for energy suppliers around the process of when there is the situation of a domestic consumer registered as half-hourly with one supplier, but the gaining supplier not offering this, and an improved consumer switching journey as consumers don't miss out due to their half-hourly status. It's only Schedule 23 and Section 11.3 that will be impacted under this change, and alongside those impacts to domestic consumers, the only other impacted stakeholder are energy suppliers. So that's our main consumer change. Obviously, lots of benefits there for consumers. Moving on to next theme, which is data. So these are changes that look at sharing of data or how data is processed within the REC. So we start with R0205, which is still on the metering theme again as well, but focusing on the data and the provision of half-hourly consumption data for advanced meter erroneous switches. And this change was approved by the change panel on the 16th of September this year. So R0205 adds an obligation into the REC for a gaining supplier to provide half-hourly consumption data to the losing supplier for the period they were the registered supplier following an erroneous switch. Under 205, when we say gaining supplier, it is the one that erroneously gained a consumer before sending it back. So the losing supplier was the original supplier, gaining supplier held that consumer for a short period of time before returning them back to the losing supplier. The issue was raised as the data for half-hourly consumption wasn't always found, and the only one that would have that is the gaining supplier. So the solution sees the gaining supplier providing half-hourly consumption data to the losing supplier for the period they were the registered supplier. To factor in no metering issues as well, the data may be actual or estimated reads, and the gaining supplier will be required to share this data within 5 working days of the erroneous switch being agreed via a reporting template. This reporting template will be included in the appendix of Schedule 30, and there will also be a link to that document and a copy of it available on the REC portal under operational documents as well. The benefits of having the suppliers share the half-hourly consumption data between them will see improved billing and settlement accuracy, as with either the actual or estimated reads, the suppliers will be able to bill the consumer Increased market collaboration and consumer focus. So obviously there will be the collaboration between a gaining and losing supplier, which is obviously very good practice, and focusing on making sure the erroneous switch is resolved for the consumer and that they receive accurate billing. And that in turn will lead to improved consumer trust and focus as well. The only impacted category 1 product is the Schedule 30, the resolution of consumer-facing switching and billing issues, where the obligation has been drafted in. There's also an impact on the SDEP screen PT0047, the erroneous transfers general query electricity screen, as this is the SDEP process type in which the reporting template should be shared. Under the change proposal and approved solution, this is the only method that data can be shared. The other impact product is the new advanced meter half-hourly data sharing template that I touched upon that will be available on the portal and in the appendix of the schedule. And this template should be filled out and then shared to the relevant suppliers using that SDEP PT47 screen. The impacted stakeholders for this one are domestic consumers due to the benefits I've touched upon, energy suppliers and meter operator agents who may support energy suppliers in gaining that half-hourly data. Moving on to our next change, which is R0257, change to REC for data processing outside of the European Economic Area, EEA. And this was approved by the change panel on the 5th of August 2025. And it removes an additional layer of authorization outlined in the REC main body that REC parties have previously been required to carry out prior to any REC data being processed or transferred outside of that EEA. So the solution sees REC main body clause 20.8 is removed while retaining the remaining sub-clauses as they are relevant to managing the associated risks and UK GDPR obligations. So it's a legal text change that is just removing clause 20.8 from the main body. The benefits from this are, as the proposed solution removes the REC board approval when a REC party needs to process data out of the EEA, it will be a more streamlined process and align with other codes in the energy industry. The only product being impacted is that REC main body and specifically that clause, and this will impact all REC parties, as all REC parties may at some point or another find themselves having to share data or transfer data outside of the European Economic Area. And our third data change is our next one, which is R0263, sharing confirmed energy theft with the BSC company. And this was approved by the change panel on the 16th of September. And this change proposal provides a legal text amendment to Schedule 7 energy theft reduction to include the BSC in the list of organisations and parties who should be shared the data relating to confirmed energy thefts. So the solution for this sees an amendment to Annex 3, Clause 6.4 of Schedule 7 to include a provision that the existing process by which the code manager shares data relating to confirmed energy thefts with relevant industry parties shall be extended to explicitly permit the sharing of such data with the BSC code. This is a provision that was meant to be transferred over to the REC when the REC went live, but an oversight meant that it hadn't been included in. So whilst the process is already there for CDSPs and DNOs, the BSC code was left out of the drafting. So R0263 ensures that we are able to share that data with the BSC code. The benefits from this, we'll see strengthened regulatory compliance and governance, in particularly cross-code coordination, which is something that Ofgem as the authority likes to see and encourages between the codes. And this is a perfect example of doing that, sharing data to support the operations of each code. And similarly, enhanced market integrity and trust, as obviously that data around confirmed energy thefts is a serious area that needs to be addressed. So obviously resolving confirmed energy thefts and exploring them in more detail and sharing that data will help the market integrity. As I said, the only impacted products here are Schedule 7 and the impacted stakeholders, an indirect impact on energy suppliers, as obviously they share they submit the confirmed energy thefts to the code manager, and REC Performance Assurance, who will be ensuring that that process to share with the BSC code is in place. Moving on to some of our other themes. So up next is a technical change proposal, which is R0060, the ERDS service definition time zone correction. So if I can have the next slide, please. Thank you. And this was approved by the technical expert panel on the 28th of August 2024. And due to implementation impacted by MHHS, there was an update to the implementation date for this change proposal approved under R0250 on the 28th of May this year to include it within the standard November release. So R60 amends the electricity retail data service definition to add in Greenwich Mean Time, more commonly known as GMT, time zone to any time-based statements. The solution is a legal text clarification by adding in GMT to time-based statements relating to data processing within the ERDS service definition. That solution is just legal text clarification and does not amend the technical systems themselves. R60 will ensure that the REC accurately reflects the ERDS operating hours throughout the year and also will reduce the risk of impacts to flow processing from delays and systems being misaligned and any associated consequences to consumer impacting processes. The impacted products are the ERDS service definition, where those legal text clarifications are being made, and Schedule 1 that will reflect the changes being made as well in the relevant definitions from this process that are currently included in Schedule 1. The impacted stakeholders are energy suppliers, the ERDS provider, EES provider, and CSS provider, as they will all be engaging with that service definition and the processes around the time-based statements in the ERDS service definition. So moving on, next up, we have an operational change, which is R0157. And this is the removal of facsimile or fax as a method of code communication. And this was approved by the change panel on the 19th of March 2024. This has had a relatively long lead time, obviously, of nearly 18 months since we knew that the removal of fax was coming, and we aim to give impacted parties as much time as possible to be aware of this and make any changes that they may require. But yeah, R157 removes any outstanding references in the REC to fax due to the public switch telephone networks, PSTN, being switched off in December 2025, which will effectively mean that fax can no longer be used. So the solution has seen REC communication methods referencing fax being removed and replaced with electronic mail or email, where this is not an existing option unless an alternative form of communication is needed. Under that solution, all referencing to fax did already have email as an option as well, and we haven't identified any alternative form of communication that is needed. And similarly, the legal drafting stated it will remove any existing references prior to the November 2025 release. So some of the references have already been removed through other change proposals, such as 152 to remove the references in ComCop, for example. Under this solution as well, the code managers also used it as an opportunity to standardize phrasing in schedules as well. So we did spot that there was interchangeable use between electronic mail, email, and e-mail. So we've made sure that there is just one search on that under email. So anyone that does use our digital navigator tools to search will find all responses rather than having three ways of putting the same term and process. The benefits from this, we'll see all searches of terms and processes in the digital navigator and data specification, returning all appropriate and accurate results, as I've just touched upon. And methods of code communication in the REC are future-proofed using the latest technology to support businesses efficiently share and communicate information. The impacted products on the screen there were all the products that contained references to fax or that email distinguishment that I mentioned at the point of approval. I know that the changes to ComCop have gone through under 152, so they will be removed as well. But then 157 will specifically remove references to fax in Schedule 14, Schedule 18, the electricity inquiry service definition, and 2 data items. The impacted stakeholders are energy suppliers, meter and equipment managers, data collectors, Green Deal providers, and Green Deal finance parties. And these impacted stakeholders have been listed as they are currently impacted by the clauses or schedules that contain facts. And if they have been using facts rather than email, for example, for some of those processes, they will be impacted as they will be required to change. Moving on, next up we have another energy theft change. It's just the one energy theft change being included in the November release, and that is R0212, protecting Crime Stoppers and their contacts. Now, this one was approved by the change panel on the 1st of July. So this change proposal clarifies how the information passed on to energy suppliers, DNO and gas transporters can be used and shared. And this is particularly with the aim of which is to protect Crime Stoppers' reputation, anonymity guarantee and the welfare of those who contact Crime Stoppers or stay energy safe. So the solution for 212 sees an addition of a clarification to Schedule 7 Annex 1, and this is adding that clarification to the record, the importance of maintaining stay energy safes and Crime Stoppers anonymity promise, together with the vital importance of maintaining customers and the public's safety. The benefits we'll see, benefits come from adding clarity around that sort of approach to ensuring that data and Crime Stoppers are anonymous, and that any contacts, current and future services performed by the charity would continue to offer a secure and trusted channel for end users. As I said, the only impacted product for this one is Schedule 7, with just that clarification around how that process works and how data it will be anonymous. But the impacted stakeholders are energy suppliers, distribution network operators, and gas transporters. Moving on, we have one crosscode change up next, and that is R0248, rep changes to tie in with DCP, so DCUSA change 451, suspending registrations. And this was approved by the change panel on the 5th of August. So in line with that DCP 451, R0248 introduces the relevant changes required within the rec. So the solution sees that DNOs can end alliances under the DCUSA rules, but must notify RecPab and follow new processes for re-establishment or creation when a supplier accedes to the DCUSA. Under the solution, the market message 90003 will be required to be shared, and the CSS must update the data within 1 working day. The benefits will see improved clarity on the process for when a DNO ends a regulatory alliance with an energy supplier, and also ensures that the processes under the DCUSA and the REC are appropriately aligned. The changes and the references to the suspended registrations process are made in Schedule 24, the switching data management schedule, and that is the only product that is impacted by this crosscode change under the REC. The impacted stakeholders of this one will be energy suppliers and distribution network operators, as they are the 2 parties that are experienced or included in the process under R0248 and DCP 451. Nearly through more, so move on to last few. So governance theme. So these are sort of changes that are just changing the slight changes to the rec or document standard and operations as well. So firstly, R0255 terms of reference updates, which was approved by the rec change panel on the 5th of August. This change provides required updates to the terms of reference for firstly the rec performance assurance board and also for the crosscode steering group meetings. So firstly, for the performance assurance board, the terms of reference are amended to ensure the addition of 1 member nominated by the SEC Performance Assurance Administrator to the list of required attendees. And for the crosscode steering group, the CCSG meetings, there's clarifications that issues or change proposals from any industry code may be discussed at the meeting, whereas previously it wasn't clear and didn't contain enough clarity that any industry code can bring an issue or change proposal. Previously, it had a list that was a little bit misleading, as it sounded like it was only related to that list of examples, not everyone. So the code manager has used R255 as an opportunity to ensure that that is appropriately clarified. Benefits will see increased collaboration and working practices between the rep and the SEC through having the SEC on the PAD board. Removal of limitations to the CSG by ensuring that all industry codes can raise the issues and change proposals, and ensuring these terms of reference are up to date and an accurate reflection of how the meetings are operating will ensure there is increased transparency for all stakeholders. The only impacted products are the relevant terms of reference for both the PAD meetings and the CCSG, and the impacted stakeholders are those committees as well. So the CCSG, the Rec Performance Assurance Board, and then the Smart Energy Code with the addition of their representative to the Rec PAB. This is R0269, Schedule 5, Change Management, Clarity and Typographical Review. And this was approved by the Change Panel on the 7th of October and subject to no appeal being received by close of play today. This will also be included in the November REC release. R0269 has reviewed Schedule 5 and provides legal text amendments only to improve the clarity and governance of the change process by refining definitions, roles, timelines, and documentation standards. It doesn't change any operational processes to the change management process. Rather, it updates the schedule, providing further clarity to ensure that what's said in the schedule is an accurate reflection of how the change management process is working and should work, but also ensures that there is enough detail in the schedule for all impacted stakeholders to follow the change management process and engage with it as well. So as I touched upon, the legal text amendments will hopefully improve clarity and governance of the change process by defining definitions. So, for example, what we mean by change report proposal plan versus change report for consultation. Roles and timelines, so what the roles of the responsible committees are and how they ensure that changes move through the change process. And then documentation standards as well. We'll also be including some new definitions in Schedule 1 to help increase clarity, and we've also reviewed existing definitions as well and have updated them where they either require further clarity based on feedback from parties or contain an inaccurate definition. The benefits from these updates to Schedule 5 will see enhanced decision-making, governance and accountability by ensuring that subcommittees play their accurate role and required role within the process. Sees improved consistency with current operational practices. So as I said, ensuring that the schedule is aligned with what actually takes place. And we hope by increasing the clarity in the schedule as well, we'll be able to increase stakeholder engagement by making the change process more open for either new REC parties or smaller REC parties to be able to engage with the change process and raise changes and issues or respond to consultations and impact assessments where they would like to do so. The only impacted products are Schedule 5, Change Management, and Schedule 1, as noted within the solution. And the impacted stakeholders are all REC parties, as obviously all REC parties are able to engage with the REC change process. The REC Code Manager, as it clarifies our roles and responsibilities, and similarly clarifying the roles and responsibilities for the responsible committees. And then our last change that will be included in November 2025 is our standard housekeeping change that we include with the majority of our releases. And the number for this one is R0279. And this final recommendation for the housekeeping change will be presented to the REC change panel at their meeting on the 21st of October. And subject to approval, these housekeeping changes will be made in line with the November release. A housekeeping change means that there's non-material changes to REC products just to correct typographical, grammatical or consistency errors and introduces any necessary clarifications. So it doesn't change any of the operations of the REC or the requirements from REC parties. It is just housekeeping. So the solution for this one, it will address their typographical, grammatical and formatting issues without altering the intent or substance of the REC. And as noted, implements non-material corrections and clarifications across several REC products to improve consistency, accuracy and usability. By doing this as well, it will also reduce the risk of misinterpretation of the code by REC parties, and also, again, emphasising that it provides clarity and consistency across all REC services and products. We have completed a sort of large housekeeping review of all the schedules and products that are included through the changes in the November release. So these have been the focus for our housekeeping change for this one. So Schedule 1, 7, 14, 18, 23, 24, 27 and 30 have all been reviewed and have housekeeping changes alongside ComCop data specification and the EES API interface specification. And in line with amendments made as well, we are updating the REC baseline statement as well to ensure all version numbers are correct and all titles of documents are correct as well. Impact to stakeholders, so obviously there are no material impacts as well, but all REC parties engage with these schedules as well. So you'll be impacted as you'll see the benefits from this as well, as you'll have reduced the risk of misinterpretation, and hopefully it will provide more clarity and consistency for you. As I said, that housekeeping change is available on the REC portal. It has been published ahead of going to panel next week. So if you would like to have a look at all the changes that are being made, they are listed in the change report that can be found on the 279 portal page. So those are all the changes that are being included in the November release on Friday, the 7th of November. And so just to support parties as well, I'd like to highlight some post-implementation support that is available. So if you do need support relating to this release, you can raise a service desk inquiry or email inquiries@recmanager.co.uk. Alternatively, you can contact your operational account manager. And if you're unsure who your operational account manager is, if you drop an email to inquiries again as well, they will be able to help put you in contact. If your inquiry is related to a technical issue with the gas inquiry service, you can obviously contact ExoServe directly or use the switching service management system to get help and support with any technical queries about switching. And it says for change proposal R0155 on the screen, and for those two change of occupier changes I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation for R0232 and R0254, if you see the material from the R0155 change and the additional guidance documents on the 155 REC portal page, they will be able to further assist you with those change of occupier changes as well. But any other issues you have, always please do drop us an email via the inquiries mailbox or service desk on the REC portal. And lastly, before we move on to Q&A, thought we'd take an opportunity to highlight some upcoming working groups for changes that are currently in progress. So we have R0207 import-export mower charging clarification on the 20th of October. 197 introducing a process to provide updates during fault resolutions on the 22nd of October. 196, the review of metering asset data transferred from MAMS to CDSP on the 29th of October. And I0237, the erroneous switch review, next taking place on the 6th of November. In addition, it's worth calling out as well that our next change issues group, where you can get involved directly with the solution development of issues going through the change process, will be held on the 6th of November as well. And we'll also be hosting a separate work group, hasn't got a change or issue assigned to it at this stage, but is being run by the code manager on the supplier of last resort looking at process improvements. And that will take place on the 11th of November. If any of these working groups are of an interest to you or your organisation, we'd be more than happy for you to attend these, and you can sign up to any of the working groups via emailing inquiries@recmanager.co.uk, and we'll be able to forward on any relevant invites for those meetings. There's a lot of information there for this release. So as I said, the slides will be available as well, but obviously I can see that some questions have come in. So I'm happy to take these where I can. I can see it looks like STEP and 205. So Joanne, so when will we get sight of these screens? I haven't got a date at this moment in time as they're currently being developed by the STEP service provider, but they will be live prior to the implementation of 232. And as soon as we have a date or more confirmed visibility, we will communicate that via the usual REC channels. Similarly, Kathy, thank you for your question as well. As soon as we've got the names confirmed as well, we'll communicate them through the usual REC channels as well. As soon as the STEP service provider has completed the development for them, we will be able to confirm them. 254. So there is a draft version of the park available on the 254 change rec portal page. Sorry, that sort of gives a full. I think it's got the full visibility of the park of when the data tabs are in there, and that will go live with the November implementation. If when you look at that draft template, it's not what you're expecting to see, or you do have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to Rec Performance Assurance directly, or if you want to drop myself an email, and I was the lead analyst for 254, I'll be happy to pass on any queries to Performance Assurance regarding the park. John, thank you for your question. I will have to take that one away for you, but I can note that down, and I will find out and I will drop you an email directly once I have an answer.